Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 30 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're learning how to drive AI on the edge. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice. No sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons. And in this class, we will be using the AI Fusion Lab Kit. Now, hopefully most of you guys already have your gear, but if you don't, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon, and you can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot simpler if we are working on identical hardware. Well, enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of your way. I'm going to have a big sip of my motivational juice. We're going to come over to the lesson that we ended up with last week, and then we're going to talk about what your assignment was and then what I'm going to show you. What I did was this project that was your homework assignment, I called it another midterm, and that's because it's a little bit more challenging than some of the things that we've done earlier. So if you've taken my earlier AI classes or my earlier Raspberry Pi or Arduino classes, you're an old pro. And you should have been able to do this on your own. But if this is your first rodeo and this is the first class that you've taken from me, you might have found this assignment a little bit challenging, because what we wanted to do was we wanted to kind of make two advancements from where we were in lesson number 29. Now, in lesson number 29, what we were doing is we were tracking an object that we would input parameters, and then as we moved the objects, the servo would track that object. That was working great. But what we didn't like about that was every time you want to choose a different object to track, you've got to go in and you've got to edit the program. So what we want to do is we want to be able to train not based on tweaking the program, but drawing a box around our object of interest. Get the colors that we're interested in from that region of interest and then track on that object based on the color that was selected by what's inside the region of interest. Now, the other thing is we talked about it would be hard to track. It would be hard to select this if you have the servos kind of still tuning in a little bit. You have a little jitter. It's hard to select it perfectly. So what we wanted to do was to add a little green dot and a little red dot, and if you mouse over the green dot, it turns the servo tracking on, and if you mouse over the red dot, it would turn the servo tracking off. And so that's what we're trying to do. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with where we left off last week. So we're going to come in, we're going to copy the code, we're going to go to Thani, and we're going to paste the code in, and now we're going to see, remember I trained on the little snake bite kit, so let's just make sure that things are still working. Okay, boom, look at that. Proportional tracking, it's going fast, it's coming in and settling quickly. Very little jitter in this, so this is working very well. And so now, the first thing that I want to do is to do the part where we turn the servos on and off. Okay, we want to be able to turn those servos on and off. So how would we do that? I'm going to create a new variable, and that new variable will come down here, kind of like right before we start the mouse action, and I'm just going to say track is equal to false, like that. Now we're going to come down where we're adjusting the position of the servos, and that's down in the main loop, okay? And then right here is where I do that work with the servo. So what I am going to do is, right before this, I am going to say if track equal true, then it is going to do this snippet of code, right? This snippet of code here. And so I need to indent that So it is underneath this. Okay, so now this program I think should run, but it should track the object, but the servo shouldn't move. Okay, so let's see. Okay, look at that. So I'm still tracking the object very nicely, but the servos have been turned off. Now what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to put those two little red dots. Well, that's of course going to be in our main program, and that's not really critical. So let's just go ahead and do that right after. Let's do that right after we get our frame. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my two circles right after I get my frame. Okay, so I'm going to do a CV2.circle, and then circle, and then let's make the green dot. Where do I want to put it? I want to put it on frame. And then where do I want it? It needs to be a tuple. Let's put it about 90% over, so it'll be on the right side of the screen. And so that would be 0.9 times the uppercase W, the width of our frame, and then comma int. For the Y value, I just want to come down about 10%. So I'd say 0.1 times the height, like that, and then close that off, and close the tuple, and then there's going to be a couple more things. A radius of 20 would be a nice size dot, and then we want this first dot to be green, so that would be 0, 255, 0, and then what do I want? I wanted a solid dot, so I'll put a -1, close that. I think I should get a green dot here. Boom! I love having early success. Now also make note as I mouse over the green that the color of green in hue is 60. Okay, do you see that over here? It is 60, so just keep that in mind. I got my green dot. What else do I need? I need my red dot. And so I'll come here, and then this will be the same, but I'm going to make this red, so this will be 0, and blue, green, red, 255. And now I don't want this on top of the other one, so I'll put it 95% over, but lined up in height. And so I should have two dots here. Boom. Now let's see. The hue of red is 0, as we would expect, and the hue of green is 60. So that is really good. Feel like we're having some early success here. And also, again, when we do this, what we see is we are following the object of interest, but we are not tracking it, okay? And so now what we have to figure out is we have to figure out how to turn the tracking on and off. Well, how would you turn the tracking on and off? Well, what you would do is you would say that if in our HSV area, if the hue is 60, we want to turn it on. If the hue is 0, we want to turn it off. Well, where do we do that? In mouse action. So right here, I have what? I have the hue, I have the saturation, and I have the value. Okay? I have the hue, I have the saturation, and I have the value. And so what I am going to want to do is, and I'm sorry, this isn't in, yeah, this is in mouse action. So right here, what I would do is I would say, if hue equal 60, if hue equal 60, then what am I going to do? I'm going to say that track is going to be equal to true. So that should turn it on. Okay. And then I'm going to say, that should not have been a colon there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if hue equal 0, which is red, then I'm going to turn track equal to false. Okay. So now when I mouse over, that is where I should be getting the action happening. Okay. That is where I should be getting the action happen. Okay. So now let's go ahead and let's run this. Okay, so now let's see. Let me give it something to look at. And now if I go red, 60, it didn't turn on. Okay, did I name my variable right? Yes, track is false, so we're not surprised it's not tracking. What we're surprised is that when I set track to true, because I saw I got a 60, let's just make sure that we're getting in this, say print servo on, like that. And then let's go here. Let's make sure we're getting in that if statements. So here we are, we come up and look at that servo on, but no servo action. So somebody tell me what my mistake was. Did you guys catch it? Where is my mistake? Who didn't make track global? I didn't. I didn't on purpose because it's a very common error. You see, track is false, but now this track will be the same as that track. Okay, so now let's try it. Okay, so track is off. That's good. And then boom, look at that. I'm tracking. But now if I want to grab a region of interest, I come over here and it turns off. Mouse over, it's on. Mouse over and it's off. I probably should have just given you that much as your homework assignment because that would have been a nice chunk for you guys to figure out. Okay, but now what do I need to do? I've got the business with where was it, turning the servos on or off based on the track value. But now what do I need? I need to create that region of interest. Well, we actually did that back over here. Okay, we did that back over here a few weeks ago. So if you will go to www.toptechboy.com and go back to lesson number 25, where we were drawing the region of interest and creating the region of interest. And the first thing that we did was we have all of this stuff in mouse action. Okay, and it's going to start right here because even inside of just the normal loop, if we are moving the mouse, we need to get the end values so that it will draw the box as I'm dragging. And so I'm going to get this, and where will that go? We want it at the end of this if statement here lined up with the if frame is not true. We want to line up with frame is not true after we finish frame is none. So if we come up here, we finish if frame is none, we finish that, and then we're going to come here and we're going to go like that. Okay, so we just pasted all of that stuff in. We finish the drawing and then we start the new if statement. So that should be right. Now, what is the problem? We've introduced drawing ROI, make ROI, start X, start Y, end X, end Y, and all of those are going to need to be global variables as well. And so we're going to come up here and we're going to say start X, start Y, start or end X, end X, end Y, and then we had the make ROI, and then we had the make, or we have the drawing. Okay. Sometimes I think it would be easier to just code this up because when we start copying and pasting from the old program, we forget that things were set up here. Okay. So let's power on through here and let's go ahead and run this. Okay, and so it's finding the object, and then drawing is not defined. I thought I made drawing global. Drawing. Okay, well, up here we've got to define it, so we didn't do that. Drawing is equal to false to start with, and then make ROI is going to be equal to false. Now this time we don't expect it to draw the box because we haven't added that, but we expect it to be able to kind of get the information without crashing. Okay, and I'm click, drag, and release, and it's not crashing, so that's good. So now what we need to do is we need to come over here and we need to do the part in the main program of what do we do with drawing and make ROI. So we're going to need to get this code, and then we're going to need to put it down. And I think that we can do that. Where did we do that? Did we do that right after we grabbed the frame? Okay, so right after we grabbed the frame, we're going to add that in. So here it is. And so we're going to say do all of that stuff right here. Now, what do we not want? We don't want an ROI gray. Okay, we don't want an ROI gray. And so we just here, we create ROI. Okay, and then we don't want to create ROI gray, and then we show ROI, and then CV2 move window, we put it out at 65, so that all looks good. And then also at the end of make ROI, I think we're going to want to set make ROI to false. And so we're going to come over here, and now that we have the ROI made, we're going to say make ROI is going to be equal to false. And that way it should now turn off and not try to do that anymore. So let's come in, okay, and then here is our object, and then I click, and box color is not defined. Okay, so we added some things in here. When we did that copying and pasting, we made this CV2.rectangle, and that wanted box color and box thick. So we're going to have to set those up at the top. Okay, and so the box color, let's make the drawing box cyan, and so that would be equal to blue is 255, green is 255, and then 0. And then the box thick that also wanted, let's just make it 3. So we hope this time that the thing runs without an error. And so, ooh, come on, stop that, you aggravating thing. All right, let's try it again where I give it something to look at. Okay, let's give it something to look at. Okay, so that's good. Okay, now we come, we track, we stop. That's good. Now, what do we want to see? I want to click, drag, and stop, and I got my region of interest, which you cannot see. There it is. So I got my region of interest. I just grabbed it and I showed it once, but I can see what my region of interest is. So let's go ahead and quit. And then that servo on, let's take that out. That printing servo on, let's take that out. And that was in the mouse action. Let's take that out because that's just annoying at this point. Okay, so now what we do is we have our region of interest. And so let's come back up to, we're in mouse action. Now we've got to do something with it. We've got to define our lower color and our upper color based on what? We've got to do it based on the region of interest. And so we're going to say if we're going to come down to our main program. Okay, and in our main program where we have if make ROI is true, what we want to do is we have our ROI, and now we need to make an HSV version of the ROI. So I'm going to say ROI HSV is going to be equal to frame is going to ROI HSV is going to be CV2.CVT color, and then the color we're going to start with ROI, and then we're going to do CV2.color, and we're going to go BGR to HSV. Now, why do we need to do that? Because I need to get that upper color and that lower color, and that is going to be looking at the ROI, but we need to look at the ROI in HSV. Does that make sense? So I now have ROI, HSV, and now I've got that. So let's just run this. Okay, so let's run this, and I want you to see it. Okay, so if I go here and grab it, have a typo, color BGR, color underscore BGR. All right, so now let's run it. Okay, so now I have my region of interest over here. Let's get something that you can see a little better. I've got my region of interest. Now I want to know what the average hue is inside of this. I don't want to just pick one point. I want to pick the average. And so it would probably be better if I actually did something like this. Okay, and if I came in, stop that. Okay. If I came in and selected over it, now I want to come over here and I want to know the average hue in my region of interest. I want the average hue in my region of interest. And so that would be inside of Make ROI. I have my ROI HSV, so now I'm going to find the average I'm going to find the average HSV, and that is going to be the CV2.mean, means average. I want the mean of what? ROI HSV. And that is going to give me the averages. And so now let me just see if I can print, and I'm going to print the AVG HSV, and I'm going to be expecting a tuple with 3 values. So let's see if that's what I get. Okay, so I'm going to come here, okay, and then look at that. I have the average hue, the average sat, and I have the average value. Okay, and let's see if I come over here to the green, that's a 78, and if I select there, I get 77.97. So that seems to be working right. So what do I have now? I have my average HSV. Now what you can imagine is I could say the lower color is going to be equal to, and then I'm going to have the upper color, and that's going to be equal to, and they're both going to want a tuple. Okay, but now I don't want to just go for the average hue value. I want to go above the average and below the average, because it could be if you had a bunch of high and a bunch of low, very few of them would be the average. So I want to create a bound, but it's going to be based on AVG, HSV. And what am I going to want? I'm going to want the first element of the tuple. And let's say that to get a range on the lower, I want to go from the average down 15 points. And on this AVG HSV of 0, I want a range. So I would go from the average minus 15 to the average plus 15. And that's going to get the hues that are around the average. Okay, that should be 15. Okay, now that's hue. How about saturation? On saturation, I'm going to want the AVG HSV of the first element. Okay, and then I want a lot wider range. I'm going to go from minus 50 because, if you got, you have a lot more variation in the saturations. So I'm going to go like that down 50. And then here, I'm just going to go up to 255 because some of the parts could be very bright. And then on the value, I'm going to do similar AVG HSV, and this is going to be the element 2, and then again I'm going to go minus 50, so I get a big range, minus 50. Go ahead and close that. Minus 50. All right, and then where did my upper go? Let me see, Z. Somehow I erased that. So this should be minus 50. And then we close that. And then I come here and I have 255, and I'm going to put 255 here as well. And now everything looks happy. So the lower is going to be everything. So I average everything in my region of interest, and I go from the average hue that it finds. I'm going to go 15 points below that, and I'm going to go 15 points above that. Then I'm going to go all the way up to full saturation, and I'm going to go up to full value, and I'm going to go with the average saturation minus 50 and the average value minus 50. Man, I am not typing well today, am I? So you see, now I'm creating the lower color and the upper color by getting a range around the average hue, the average saturation, and the average value. So let's try this. Okay. And so now let's see if I can get something interesting here. And let's say I'm going to create my region of interest like that. Boom, there is my region of interest. It is tracking it now. That's good. Let's say I got something else and I come in and I do this. Okay, it's tracking that. Look at that, really good. Take it off, bring it back on. It's tracking that. Now, what do we want to do? We want to turn on the servo. Look at that, boom. Now, okay, let me scoot back a little bit. It's not finding this one really well. I might need to tune this one again. Okay, so now I want to change my object of interest. So I stop the servos, I get a different object of interest, and let's see, everything moves backwards from how I'm looking, so it makes this a little harder. So I'm gonna get this. Okay, there it is, and it's tracking. That's good. And now I'm going to turn my servos on. Boom, look at that. Look at that. Okay. It's tracking fast. It's tracking well. Let's stop it. Who's your friend? The Cobra Snake Bite Kit. So let's select that one. Okay. It's tracking it. Turn my servos on. Boom, look at that. Okay. So let's turn the servos off. Let's try this pin. So I got to get better at selecting this. Okay, it's tracking it. Turn my servos on. Boom, boom, look at that. Do you guys realize what a huge step forward this is? We don't have to go in and tweak and play and tweak and play to find an object that we're interested in. We just put it on here, and then we drag over it like that. Okay, we get our object of interest and we drag over it. And guys, I think what would help here is when we do this, I've got to get better because it's like I'm looking at a reversed image. I'm looking at a reversed image. And so you really want to kind of get the whole thing. And so I'll come here. And select. Okay, there. And you see that's tracking a lot better. So we turn our servos on. Okay, we turn our servos off. We turn our servos on. And you see I don't have to stay over that green region. It's just once you hit it, it'll turn it on or off. Okay, guys, boom. All right, do you realize how much progress we've made? And the thing I want you to know is we've done all of this with openCV, and we have developed our own models. What does our model track on? Color. And then what do? We train it by selecting an object and getting our parameters from that. So we're doing training, we have our own model, and then we are working our way around openCV and around openCV frame, and we're doing all of this. Why am I starting here? So you understand the concepts of openCV and you're learning it based on a model that we are developing, and that model is based on color. Now when we go to MediaPipe or YOLO or all of those models that we're going to incorporate, we're going to incorporate those models based on having mastered our way around openCV. And so that is just a huge step forward that we have made in this week's lesson. Man, I hope you all are having as much fun with this as I am. It helps me if you leave a comment saying I'm going at the right speed, or you're making this way too hard, or you're going way too slow, you're too simple. So you let me kind of know, was this too big of a step? Should I have broken that up into 2 lessons? All right. But I'm really wanting to I'm itching to get to those models where we're going to be using those pre-developed models, and we're going to be using them inside of openCV. Okay, guys, it's at this point of the program. What I'll do next week is I'm going to go in, and I think next week I'm going to show you in openCV how to do face detection, how to find a face, and how to draw a box around a face. And so we've been using our model based on color. Next week, we're going to use a pre-trained model that has been trained to find faces. But it's going to be a very easy step for you next week because you already know your way around openCV. Okay, it's at this point of the program that I always give a great big shout out to my Patreons. Without you guys standing with me and backing me, I would not be able to continue to produce fresh, new, in-depth, quality content every single week. So a big thank you to those financial supporters. You can help this video by giving it a thumbs up and leaving a comment down below. When you do that, you help me with the old YouTube juice, and YouTube will show this video to more people. That's a good thing. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. When you do, make sure you ring that bell so you'll get notification when future lessons drop. And most importantly, share the video with other people, because the world needs more people driving the AI and fewer people getting destroyed by the AI. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.